Now, this is where the tragedy kind of accelerates. Ophelia goes mad. We will talk about the madness of Ophelia. This is one of the problems that T.S. Eliot has with this play. T.S. Eliot believes that Shakespeare's Hamlet lacks objective correlative. There are no enough motives for Hamlet's madness, for Ophelia's madness, for death of Polonius, for the whole hesitation plot. Is that if you want to kill the guy, go and kill the guy. Why all this hesitation? That's why we'll talk about that. T.S. Eliot, along with Voltaire and some other nobles in literature, believe that Hamlet is an overrated play of Shakespeare, and they believe that actually Hamlet is not Shakespeare's best work. In comparison with King Lear, they say that it's like a whirlwind. They believe that this is not even Shakespeare's best work, because of so many different reasons. But T.S. Eliot, now this is a nice thing, he actually called Hamlet Mona Lisa of literature. He said nobody knows why Mona Lisa is so famous. It's not obviously the best paintings and the best painting in the world, but this is a celebrity. You know, when you go to Louvre Museum, you straight go to Mona Lisa. Nobody knows why. He actually says that's, the same is true with Hamlet. We know that, he says something cool. So like if tomorrow, like aliens come to Earth and they want to know about our literature, we say, here, this is our literature, Hamlet. But we really don't know why. This is full of holes, this play. And Shakespeare himself kind of looks lost in this play. We will talk about that. Ophelia goes mad. Now this is where the tragedy starts. Right after that, she starts singing a song about a woman who was tricked to bed and in the promise of marriage and love. And after that, in the next play, we will see that she starts giving flowers away, different kinds of flowers to people. And we will talk about the symbol of all these flowers that Ophelia gives away. Now, she disappears. Now here, there are so many different plots in the story, which we really cannot talk about them. You see, right after the play event, the king kind of asked, and the murder of Polonius, the king asked Hamlet to go to England. He said, I don't want to kill you, so go to England. So he goes to England, but he writes a letter and gives it to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and in that letter, it was written that the very first person that receives it should kill Hamlet. Hamlet finds the letter, changes the letter, and said the Guildenstern should die, and gives it away, and he escapes by pirates. Anyway, we don't want to talk about that. When Laertes hears the news of his father's murder, he goes crazy. He kind of revolts. And through a mutiny, he gathers so many different people with himself, and he attacks the palace and actually threatens the king to, he said, I want to kill you. But now, later, when we talk about Polonius, he tries to kind of butter things up, and he tries to persuade him that he is not the enemy, Hamlet is the enemy. And then he sees Ophelia's madness, Ophelia being mad, and seeing Ophelia's madness, he's kind of persuaded that the king is not his real enemy, but it is Hamlet who needs to be murdered and killed. And actually, this is the part where they start giving, Ophelia starts giving away the flowers, and after that she disappears, and in the next scene we hear the fact that from the queen that Vedad, wake up. All right. We hear the fact that she was not sleeping, she was like trying to test me. She's drowned. Yeah, I'm sorry. She's drowned. The thing is that she does not kill herself, Ophelia. She's kind of dropped in the water, but it's as if her clothes is trying to sink her. We will talk about this, the symbol of that. What does it symbolize? Anyway, Ophelia dies. Allegedly, they believe that she committed suicide. We are talking about Christians here, and we are talking about Protestants here, because Denmark was definitely a Protestant country. It was no country for people who committed suicide. And if you killed yourself, you could not be buried like an honest Christian. So Hamlet is coming back from England, halfway from England. He escapes. On his way back to palace, he comes across with this gravedigger, the graveyard, cemetery. And we know the very famous, again, super famous scene of Hamlet and Yorick's skull. This gravedigger, he says, I am getting rid of all these skulls and bones because I want to prepare it for a new owner. And he starts talking about all the people who used to be here, and all of a sudden, he says, for example, this is Yorick's skull. And he says, Yorick, which Yorick? Then he realized that he used to work in the palace, he used to make them laugh and all, and this is the Yorick. And he said, this guy used to bear me on his shoulders. I said, he used to have eyes, a tongue. This is actually where Hamlet looks death in the eye for the first time. And from this part on, Hamlet is not the same teenage, childish guy anymore. All of a sudden, there's a feeling that he kind of aged. He was acting like a teenager before, but right after this scene, he starts acting like a grown-up. Something has turned in him after this part. We'll talk about it again. What does it symbolize? Right after this, he suddenly sees that he sees that a group of people are approaching, and they have a coffin, and they're burying someone. All of a sudden, he realizes that it is Ophelia that they're trying to bury. So he's surprised. He did not know that Ophelia was dead. So he hides in the corner along with Horatio, of course. I don't want to talk about the scene that Laertes, Ophelia's brother, makes here. He jumps into grave. We have seen those scenes in Iran. He jumps into the let me look at her. He starts kissing her, the body and everything. It is not healthy, really. We will talk about this. Then all of a sudden he sees Hamlet. He wants to kill Hamlet. The king and the queen separate them, and they say that, hey, let's put all your problems to an end by a friendly I'm watching you game of the fence, all right? So a fencing game, fencing match. Say, put aside all your problems. So they say, okay, they agree, but there's they're plotting, the king and Laertes. What happens is that they kind of poison the tip of Laertes' sword, and of course, to make sure that Hamlet will die, the king puts a glass of poisonous wine. He tries to offer Hamlet the poisonous wine. So what happens at the fencing match? Hamlet strikes Laertes once, twice, 3 times. Well, all of a sudden Laertes scratches Hamlet. In a sword fight, they kind of exchange the swords. So Hamlet has Laertes' sword. He scratches Laertes. Now Laertes knows that he's scratched. He knows that he's poisoned. He knows that he's going to die. So he kind of confesses. He comes clean. And he says, hey, dude, guess what? You're going to die. I'm going to die. And it is the king's fault. So Hamlet, being crazy, he decides to kill the king after 4 hours. But right before that, Hamlet, the king actually offers Hamlet the glass of wine. He says, I'm not thirsty, not now, perhaps later. Then all of a sudden, Gertrude, Hamlet's mother, goes and picks up the glass of wine, the cup of wine. Now this is the part we don't know, that if she knew that it was poisonous or it was not. In Fontier's version of this of Hamlet, she knows actually that the glass is poison. This is important because later when we're talking about Gertrude's character, it is kind of important that is she a caring mother or not? Or is she a demon? We will talk about that. So anyway, she drinks the poison. The king says, Gertrude, don't. And she says, I'm sorry, my king. So anyway, she drinks it up. She dies. Hamlet kills the king and makes him drink the what is left of the wine, just like that. So he makes sure that he stabs him and poisons him. Anyway, the king dies. Laertes dies. Gertrude dies. And of course, Hamlet dies. We did not talk about one character here. I wanted to talk about him right now. In the first scene of the play, there is a guy called Fortinbras. He's the son of this king in Norway. Before the king Hamlet actually died, they kind of have a bet or something, and through the bet, the king of Norway lost some lands, and through the sword fight, the duel, King Hamlet killed Fortinbras, the father. So they both died. Now after that, we have Hamlet the son and Fortinbras or Fortinbras in different pronunciation, Fortinbras the son. So Fortinbras decides to attack Denmark to take back all those lands. We don't see him really. We just hear about him. We do not see him until the very last scene of the play. So all through the play we hear the fact that actually Fortinbras is coming from Norway and killing everyone to claim all those lands. So what happens here is this. Everyone dies. Hamlet dies, the king dies, the queen dies, the servants die, everyone dies here. And after the bloodbath, all of a sudden, guess who comes in? Fortinbras. And he comes in and he was surprised. And he said, like, what is all going on here? Horatio, as I told you, is the only person who has actually is alive, is survived. So he tells Fortinbras what happens and the turn of events. So finally, seeing that there is nobody to claim the throne, Fortinbras sits the throne and he becomes the king, the new king of Denmark. Happily ever after for Fortinbras. That's pretty much, and this is the guy Fortinbras here. That's how pretty much the things go on. When Hamlet dies, Horatio wants to kill himself. He wants to drink the wine. He actually tried that, but he sees that there is no wine. But Hamlet actually asked him not to kill himself, stay alive, but to tell the world what happened. Perhaps like somebody here, I remember, told me that in Romeo and Juliet night, we can have a trace of Shakespeare in a different character. Perhaps that's Horatio. Shakespeare tries to say that he's the Horatio of the story. So anyway, everyone dies, and Fortinbras is the king of Denmark. But what is all the fuss about this play? A king is dead. The ghost comes back to this world, asks the son to take revenge. For any story, let's get a little academic here. I know anyone here like literature, English literature, student or?
No, I just graduated.
Graduated, good, great. So as you all know, anyone else? Raise your hands. Good, yeah, all right. We have a PhD over there actually. Yeah, she's sleeping, I guess. All right, so as you know, for any story to be called a literary one, there are these elements in the plot. They should have an initial situation. So, okay, we know that what was going on. Once upon a time, there is this country, there is this land, Elsinore, Denmark, this and that. But we know that the king is dead, the queen has remarried. They say something funny. They said that the queen has, the queen got married so fast that we could use the leftovers of the funeral for the wedding. All right, what food was left from the funeral we could use for wedding. Hamlet says 2 months, but all of a sudden he remembered that it was much less than that. So this is the initial situation. The scene is set. Right after that, we have the conflict. Now, this is where the whole thing starts. Now, the ghost appears and he asks Hamlet to take revenge. Now, this is the funny thing, because he has actually come back to kind of cleanse her sins, but what happens is that he asks someone else to commit a murder. Now, we really don't know how this is a cleansing process. But there is a complication. There's always a complication in stories. Things do not go just like that. They do not go simple as that. Hey, this is like, that's it? No. There is a complication here. Now, the hesitation is a complication. You know that. When we say hesitation, all of a sudden we, they're kind of interchangeable these days. When we say hesitation, we say Hamlet. But what is the reason of all this hesitation? Why does Hamlet think so much before killing the king? Why, really? Why is he just keep asking himself to be, not to be, to kill, not to kill, to die, not to die, this and that? What is the reason? And of course, there's a madness. He starts acting mad. Now, we are not sure. Even if at first he tried to act out the madness, we really are not sure that at the end of it, especially the grave scene, that he is mad or not. There are traces. Infidelity, we talked about, and betrayal. All of a sudden, he said that adulterate, incestuous beast, the uncle. And of course, the mother, infidelity of the mother, all of a sudden he realized that his mother was not loyal to his father. This is all the complications. But the climax is actually, there are 2 climaxes here. One, the play climax, an emotional climax. The emotional climax is where Hamlet actually attacks Gertrude to intimidate her. But all of a sudden, this is a cool part. When he goes to her chamber and he tries to kind of scare her, act as if I want to kill you right now, and after he stabs Polonius, he's so angry at Gertrude, all of a sudden the ghost appears for the second time. Hamlet father's ghost appears for the second time. And he said, I'm not here to stop you. I'm actually here to whet your sword. Whet, W-H-E-T, is like sharpen your sword. But as I told you, do nothing to your mom. Leave her to heavens. You have another mission. You should go and kill your... And at the end of this scene, Hamlet and Gertrude kind of bury hatchet. They start talking to each other again, and this is the emotional climax. But the climax of the play is the play within the play that we have we have in Hamlet. Now, as in language and art craft, we will study it. Perhaps this is one of the parts that Shakespeare did, it's amazing. We actually have 2 plays in one. So the climax of this play is where the king actually accepts and admits that he had committed the crime. And the suspense there's always suspense. We are not sure. We are in doubt. Does Hamlet die? Does he stay alive? Does he kill the king? Does he not? Does he kill the queen? What is going to happen? What happens after that? In the sword fight, for example, which we heard that it was one of the most breathtaking parts, along with Romeo and Juliet sword fight, because we know that Shakespeare actually played that himself. This is the suspense part. But denouement is, in denouement, the peak of it is the revenge is taken. It takes 4 hours for Hamlet to decide what to do, and in 5 minutes, as I said, everyone dies. And in conclusion, again we have political order. Don't forget that, like Irfan and I were talking about it a couple of months ago, that Shakespeare is actually following the path of Seneca. And we know that for sure. He's the he rewrote the Greek, very, very big and the main tragedies, the Roman writer, playwright, Seneca. Back then, the idea of police was the only important idea. Everything circled around that the king and the police. So right after that, by the fall of ancient Greece, this idea actually died out. But what happened after that was Shakespeare, at the end of all of his plays, what happened was in Macbeth, in Romeo and Juliet, in Hamlet, in King Lear, in all these tragedies, at the end, he comes to political order. Someone sits the throne and someone saves the day. It's as if a savior, actually. Perhaps Shakespeare is trying to look for a savior. But this is what we have in almost all of Shakespeare's tragedies. This is not how normal tragedies should end, but Shakespeare's does. Now let's continue this a little bit more. Let's go through the different aspects of this play. Let's analyze it. Let's peel different layers off to go and see what Shakespeare actually wanted to say. Now the genre, as we know, is a revenge tragedy. Let's study together tonight, and let's decide whether or not this actually is a tragedy. In the other two tragedies that we worked on, Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet, we studied this. We said that for a piece of work to be called a tragedy, some elements are required. But this is Hamlet we're talking about. This is definitely a revenge tragedy. And when we're talking about revenge tragedy, we quickly, first of all, think of Seneca again, as I said. But at the time of Shakespeare, the whole thing in the 16th century started with Thomas Kyd. As I said, that it was who wrote Hamlet. And Hamlet, Kyd's Hamlet, is a very united, it has coherence, it has cohesion, it has unity. He knows what he wants to say. There is A and there is Z. It's definitely not like Shakespeare's Hamlet. But why do we call Hamlet revenge tragedy? For a work to be called revenge tragedy, these elements are required. The most important is a secret murder. Now this is very important. There should be a secret murder. If you want to say this piece of work is revenge tragedy, if you follow these 7 items, definitely call it that. A secret murder, check. We have a secret murder here. Hamlet's father's ghost said that he died in the garden, among his orchards, and when he was sleeping. And this is something that he always, this was his habit. But all of a sudden it was as if serpent actually bit him. So a secret murder. Murder victims' ghost visit a relative. This actually happens in almost all revenge tragedy. There is always a ghost. We see a ghost. A ghost appears, and a ghost tells someone, a relative, what to do, a friend sometimes. Hero wants revenge. There's always revenge in revenge tragedies. It is called revenge. But what happens is like that. I hear something, the ghost tell me what to do, I go and do it. Of course, there is suspense, there are different problems, but there is not that much hesitation. Actually, see, hesitation is what kind of makes Hamlet very different from revenge tragedies. And right after that, revenge tragedy was not the same anymore. Right after Hamlet, actually, was a turning point. It was not the same as the old school revenge tragedy. So after that, plotting, disguise, and intrigue ensue. We have them, of course. We have it all. We have madness. The king shows that he's a very noble one, and he's a good man. So we have all this plotting and disguise. The king told Laertes to calm down, to kill. Let's kill Hamlet together. We have madness. In all revenge tragedies, we have these elements. We have madness, real or feigned. Now, please be careful about that. Sometimes this madness is real. Sometimes the character is so angry that he goes mad and he plucks his eyes out. Like, Martha, pluck the eye out? Anyone? Who? Kill Bill? Yeah, a little literature, please. Like, we'll go back. I love the way you think. Yeah, just like Oedipus. Do you remember? Oedipus. Yeah. Oh, Oedipus. Yes, exactly. He does that. Just like King Lear. How many of you have read King Lear here? Raise your hand. Thank you. Yeah, good. Okay. All right. So this is it. Next week we're going to talk about King Lear, by the way. So this is madness. There is madness. Sometimes it's real, and sometimes it's not. It's staged. Kill Bill, good. Very good. I'm a huge fan. So, rising body count, people die, we know that. And major bloodbath, including hero's violent death. Now please be careful, hero dies at the end. There is no happy ending for the hero, because this is still a tragedy. It's still a tragedy. But let's see if it follows the essence of the actual old tragedy way, or is it only a revenge tragedy? If you remember, in the other nights, previous weeks, we said that for a piece of work to be called a tragedy, we need these elements as well. Dramatic work, check, it's a play. Serious or somber theme, definitely Hamlet. Aside from the grave diggers, aside from them, and aside from some Polonius joke, it's a very grim and gruesome play. So when the hero's got a major flaw of character or conflict with some overpowering force, this G belonged to that part. I don't know what it does here. Anyway, a major flaw of character or conflict with overpowering force. If you remember, we talked about it in Macbeth. We talked about it in Romeo and Juliet. That to begin with, the hero is dead. The very first moment that Macbeth decided to kill Duncan, he died. The very first moment that Romeo decided to marry Juliet, he died. He actually knew that there was no end. No matter how hard he tried, no matter how hard Macbeth tried, if you remember, he couldn't do anything. They prophesied that if the woods approach you, and no one was born from a woman, but he died. Because, I don't want to say that it's a destiny, but he is destined. He is destined to die because he is trying to fight an overpowering force. Universe is it? Call it whatever you want. If you remember, I told you Romeo and Juliet, like, when we talk about tragedy, we have to, like, see it like that. I know that what I'm trying to do, I cannot be successful in it, but I do it anyway. But many people believe that Hamlet was hesitating for this. It was not the reason for Hamlet's hesitation. Bear with me, and we will talk about that. In case you feel tired or something because of the chairs, you can go and stand up in the sides, all right? Just an idea. So, restoration of political order. I'm sorry for this. I don't know why it happened. Political order. In almost all tragedies, we have political order at the end. Please be careful that at the end of all tragedies, not necessarily we should have countless bodies. Of course, in Shakespeare's we do. In almost all works of Shakespeare, you have dead bodies. Too many of them. But this is not what a tragedy is about. Okay? So this is it. Hamlet is definitely a revenge tragedy and still is a tragedy. But let's move on. Let's pace it up a little bit. Let's talk about the characters. Let's get a little more serious about it. So far, I've been trying to tell you what happened with the story, the theme of the story, about the plot of the story. We talked about different characters. Now what we're trying to do here is this. We try to see what is really going on in Hamlet. What is the story? What makes this play, this much famous? Let's talk about Hamlet. Who is Hamlet? We still don't know. Now the thing is this. Many of us believe that he's a teenager, but we know for sure that he is not. Because in grave scene, the gravedigger said, I was born the very first day that Prince Hamlet was born, and I've been working here for 30 years. So now we know that Hamlet is 30, but why is he acting that childish? What's the problem? Why are you so... what's all the fuss with your mother's love life, sexual life, marriage? What is it all about? You see, Hamlet and sex, he definitely has a problem with that. Now, this is somewhere that we try to get serious here. You see, when we say Hamlet and sex, we are not talking about actual sexual intercourse. We're talking about gender, which in the next slide we'll talk about it a bit more. You see, he is so obsessed with Gertrude's sex life. Not after his father died, uncle, even before that. In the first soliloquy, he remembers the time that he could not get enough of his father. So Hamlet is kind of angry at Gertrude because she was into her husband. But why is it like that? Now there are different opinions and ideas, and we will talk about that. Why all the hesitation? Now please be careful about that. Hamlet knows, he saw the father's ghost, and his father said that you should go and kill the other guy. Now he knows what he's supposed to do, but he still goes on and on and on with to be or not to be. There are different theories about that. That why why is Hamlet so hesitant about it? Let me refresh your memory. We are not holding these nights to talk about this play. We're not talking about something that a person said 400 years ago. We want to introduce it. We want to remember it again, to see if they still work in 21st century. If you remember, we started with Eliot. We continued it with Shakespeare. The next month we will work on works of Edgar Allan Poe, and again we'll go back to T.S. Eliot somewhere around Chicago. Anyway, there are 4 theories that why all the hesitation? What's the reason? The nature of ghosts. In order to understand that, we have to understand the time that Hamlet was written. We are talking about We are talking about 16th century, 17th century England. We are talking about Protestant Reformation. You see, back then, the church was Catholic. You know that. Now, they had some problems. A guy called Martin Luther, not King, the other guy, another Martin Luther. Martin Luther, actually, who was in Wittenberg, the same university or school that Hamlet actually went to. He wrote like 95 theses, if I'm not mistaken, 90 something, 95 I think. And through those essays, he set the new rules for Christianity. And he actually asked the church, he went to war with church.